the Chiefs game 26-24. The Chiefs. And I figured that they would kick a lot of field goals and not get a lot of touchdowns. Saying that, Kansas City Chiefs look like the Kansas City Chiefs of the past 5 years, with a great offense. And so they were playing. It was a great game. It was a game that went back and forth. Another game that Patrick Mahomes was down 7 points and came back to win. The defense in the first half just let Buffalo run all over them, dominated them. I believe they rushed for 145 yards in the first half. Now, Buffalo was averaging 153.5 yards per game in the six previous games to make the playoffs, because they had to go 6-0, which they did go 6-0, and they ended up getting the playoffs. Saying that, the second half, Steve Spagnuolo's team put the clamps on the Buffalo Bills. They shut down the offense. Patrick Mahomes was still moving the ball. There was still a lot of scoring. And then there was a fake punt. And Buffalo did that on a 4th and 5, roughly at in the 30-yard line. And was a total shock. They got stopped. In fact, they only got like 2 yards on the play. So it gave Kansas City the ball. Well, Kansas City, they were moving the ball so well, all they had to do was score a touchdown, and it was going to put the clamps on the Buffalo Bills. But McCole Hardman, who had fumbled on the second play of the game, but thank goodness the Chiefs recovered it, Pacheco went 29 yards down to the 3-yard line. Then they do an end around with McCole Hardman. I'm like, okay, just hold on to the ball. Sure enough, he throws his arms out. He's spinning it around, trying to get his arms out. And if you watch the last game of the regular season for Tampa Bay, where they played Carolina, they only beat Carolina 9-0, and the reason why it was 9-0 was the wide receiver did the exact same thing. He tried to stretch out his hands to try to score a touchdown, and Winfield, the defensive back from Tampa Bay, knocked it out. Went out of the end zone, turnover. It's technically a touchback, but you call it a turnover. And from then on, Tampa Bay shut out the Panthers. Well, McCole Hardman did the exact same thing. These defenses today will start punching the ball out of your hands. You better hold on to it tightly, and you ain't that strong enough to hold the ball with 2 hands trying to stretch it across and not let somebody knock it out. Knocks it out, goes out of the end zone, touchback. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is the chance that Buffalo had. Buffalo is thinking, the fans were thinking, okay, we're going to get it. Josh Allen's going to run the ball, run the offense down the field, score a touchdown, and that will be that. But saying that, they were facing the Chiefs defense, who just completely shut down that Buffalo Bills offense. But Buffalo still kept moving the ball. They moved it into a field goal range where Tyler Bass, was going for a 44-yard field goal. Now, earlier in the game, in fact, I believe it was the first field goal and points of the game where he kicked it. The ball started moving right and went inside the goalposts for 3 points. Well, this last time, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to kick the field goal, the game will be tied, and it'll be up to Patrick Mahomes and his magic to take it back down the field, either lead up to a Bucker field goal for the win or even a touchdown, and turns around and it shoots right, wide right, which is Buffalo's worst 2 words that you can ever say to them, and they ended up losing the game. And so the Chiefs ran the ball out, or ran the timeout, and now they are playing the Baltimore Ravens, going to Baltimore. So this will be Patrick Mahomes' first AFC Championship game on the road. But saying that, Buffalo is still crying and still upset and still mad. Hey, we can't say nothing. Josh Allen played well enough to win. They ran the ball well enough to win. But the Chiefs are in their head, and the Chiefs are living rent-free in their head, and it will take a long time. One time they had the 13-second, and this one, the missed field goal, and I really believe this one was worse than the 13 seconds, because at least it was in Kansas City for the 13 seconds. You were at home. You had supposedly the control of dictating how this game was going to be, and you still could not do it. And so anyway, so the final score for the Chiefs game was 27-24. I predicted 26-24. So in those 3 games, I was off 3 points. 3 games, 3 points. One I nailed it right on the head. One I was off by 2 points, and the other one I was off by 1 point. So I just want to say I knocked it out. And that's what professionals do. So that's what I did. I went 4-0, and I just totally kicked butt. Now, I have been getting a couple of texts saying that they're trying to find this show. We are on KUAW. I do not know. I will have to look when we get to halftime.
Yeah, it should be going out. It started late. I didn't get it. The first part, first 7 minutes or so really didn't go out. But you should be here. There was technical difficulties, but we've got that straightened out, so you guys should be getting it. It was going out over our radio feed, but not over our video feed.
Gotcha. Yeah, because, I mean, normally when I'm doing the show, when Coach 24 we're on each side, usually I can see us on a screen, or the computer screen, the monitor screen, and all I'm looking at is emails. And so I can tell which ones have not. Oh, hey, there's me. Hi. There I am. Happy as a June bug now. So, so now we've got the AFC Championship game. We got the NFC Championship game. We've got one team that in San Francisco that is trying to get back after their devastating loss last year in the NFC Championship game against Philadelphia when Brock Purdy got injured and kind of decapitated the team because the other quarterback that they had was also injured. And so they virtually had CMC, which is Christian McCaffrey. He actually ran a play or two at quarterback. But saying that, they are making sure now that they're taking care of it. This last year was in Philadelphia. This year is in San Francisco. They are playing a team that had not been to the NFC Championship game since 1991. The last time that they have won a road playoff game was 1957. And I am thinking, Mr. Walker, you were not even alive at that time in 1957?
Oh yeah, I was around then and stuff. Matter of fact, that was my kindergarten year.
Oh, okay. So you were born in 1952.
Right.
Ah, gotcha. Well, technically you weren't in kindergarten because you were probably still 4 at the time.
Yeah, that was a sore spot too.
Well, no, actually, that game was December 22nd, 1957. So you were in kindergarten. You were already dealing with Christmas break. So anyway, they had played the NFC Championship game, and the week before, they had played the San Francisco 49ers, and I will discuss a little more about that. There's been 2 times in the history of the NFL where the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers played each other in the playoffs. One time it was before the Super Bowl era, and one time after the Super Bowl era, and we will get to that. But saying that, the Detroit Lions have lost 11 straight road games. The last time they won a road game was the 1957 game, which was in San Francisco, and I believe the championship game was in Cleveland, and they beat Cleveland. And I'm almost positive that it was that. But anyway, they ended up beating Cleveland 59-14 to get their 4th championship game at that time. They had won in 1932, 1952, 1954, and 1957. They were tied for 3rd with the most championships at that time. In 1957, only the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears had more, and I can't remember exactly who they were tied with. Excuse me, but they were tied with somebody, and since then they hadn't even come close to sniffing a championship, let alone playing in the championship. But they are 60 minutes away on Sunday. On the second game at 5:30 on Fox, and they will be playing the San Francisco 49ers. It will be the 3rd playoff game that they will face each other, and that's going to be a really great game. You've got technically a seasoned team in San Francisco, because remember, they were in the Super Bowl 5 years ago. I know the quarterback wasn't in the Super Bowl, neither was Christian McCaffrey, but I believe Deebo Samuel was in the Super Bowl, and a couple of other players, and along with some of the defense. I know Nick Bosa was there. So they are more of a seasoned team, but the Detroit Lions, with Dan Johnson as the head coach, leading them, and that is going to be a great game. Now, with the AFC, you've got the Kansas City Chiefs, who for the whole year, you was not sure where they were going. You was not sure if they were going to make it to the Super Bowl, but as the veteran team, as the team similar to the New England Patriots in their Tom Brady days, you've got Patrick Mahomes, anything can happen. And so they have totally they've made it to the AFC Championship game, their 6th year in a row. And this is the second longest streak in NFL history, at least in the Super Bowl era history. Only the New England Patriots from 2011 to 2018 they made it 8 years in a row that has a better run than the Kansas City Chiefs. And as long as you have a great coach like Andy Reid, you have Patrick Mahomes as the great quarterback, you always have a chance. And so Baltimore, who has been trying to prove themselves ever since they won their Super Bowl in 2012, and with Lamar Jackson, who had a stigma of not being able to win the big games. He did win it last week. He scored 4 touchdowns, 2 by pass and 2 by run. this is his opportunity, and to do it in Baltimore. So, and he even admitted he really didn't want to play the Kansas City Chiefs. He'd rather have played Buffalo. But in order to be the best, you got to beat the best, and Kansas City Chiefs are still on top of that mountain as the defending Super Bowl champs. And until you beat them, they are still going to be there. And so this is going to be a great match. And with that, I am going to take this is at halftime on Any Given Sunday on KUAW. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we will get more into the playoffs. We will maybe even talk about a couple of coaching hires, which I am very happy that happened, and one coach that has not been hired, which I'm even happier. So we're going to take a quick break, and with that, we will be back on KUAW. All right, we're back with the second half of Any Given Sunday on KUAW. Coach 24, Darwin Penny, who is not here tonight. DJ Scatter, George Walker producing the show, and I am Brian Crest, the awesome voice. we had a little technical difficulty in the beginning, so there were some people who said that we can't see you, where are you, we're wanting to watch you. We did have a delay, but when I got on, we were talking about me and 3 games. And so what I was talking about was the 4 games last weekend of the divisional round series with the 4 teams. I had predicted 3 of them, because I give a score. So I don't do it here when we do it on the show with Coach 24 and I. We just say we're picking Team A or Team B. I don't give a score, but on Sundays I do a prediction show through any given Sunday, and I do represent a KUAW. But I put an actual score down. And so Baltimore was 34-10, but I predicted 27-23. I did get it right. But San Francisco and Green Bay, I had predicted San Francisco to win 26-21, and the score was 24-21. So I was off by 2 points there. And then the Tampa Bay at Detroit game, I had predicted 31-23, and the score was 31-23. So that was the second time in playoff that I've done my predictions in 8 years that I predicted the score absolutely correct. The other time was when the Chiefs played the Tennessee Titans in the AFC Championship game in 2019 to go to their first Super Bowl since Super Bowl IV, and they ended up winning. And that score was 38-24. Or 31-20. They won by 11 points in it, but I predicted it absolutely correct. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, I had predicted 26-24, and the final score was 27-24. So that was what we were talking about when we finally got on the air here on through Facebook Live and YouTube. So that's what we were doing. So anyway, we were before we get into these AFC NFC Championship games, I just want to mention real quick that there have been 6 new coaches hired since the end of the season. Now, there had been a couple of coaches that were fired during the season, but there are 6 new coaches hired now, and it's led off by the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh. He's leaving Michigan and taking that job for the Chargers, which supposedly is to challenge the Chiefs and try to knock them off their AFC West pedestal. And then you have the Carolina Panthers. They signed Dave Canales, who was, I believe, a offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then you have the Patriots, and you have Jared Mayo, who was one of the coaches for the New England Patriots. They upgraded him to head coach for the New England Patriots. And then you have the Raiders, and the Raiders decide, which I think is a brilliant move for the Raiders, is to bring Antonio Pierce from intern head coach to regular head coach. And then you have the Titans. You have the Cincinnati Bengals offensive coordinator Brian Callahan taking over the Tennessee Titans job. And then just about 2 hours ago, the Atlanta Falcons hired the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Rams in Raheem Morris, who was a head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So saying this, you have 3 black African American coaches out of the 6. So you've got half and half, and I like that very much. We have been talking about how there are there are African American coaches that deserve the opportunity. They are getting their opportunities now. Now, one is a retread because he was a former NFL coach, but still, nonetheless, they are getting that opportunity, and I am extremely pleased about it. And next week with Coach 24, we will discuss this more in depth about this and how we think these coaches will be, and if they're going to be one of these coaches that are going to last a couple of years, or they're going to make a run in the playoffs and challenge the Kansas City Chiefs and other teams for a Super Bowl title. Now, saying that, real quick, Major League Baseball, Jim Leland, a manager who managed for the Detroit Tigers and Florida Marlins and Pittsburgh Pirates, made it to the Baseball Hall of Fame, along with Joe Mauer, Todd Helton, and Adrian Beltre. And we will talk more about that next week because Coach's his main thing is football. I mean, even though it is football, he is very, very, very knowledgeable, even more in baseball, and we will talk about that. And we will ask him what players he felt deserved to make it in, and if any of those three possibly he felt how they made it in. So we're going to go and we're going to talk about the Lions and the 49ers. Now, saying this, the Lions, like I said, has not been in the playoffs very often. They've only been in the playoffs 2 times since in the last 32 years. No, they've had a home game in the last 32 years. My apologies. And the last time that they had a home game was in '93, but they lost. And so they're getting their opportunities. Now, saying this, 1957, we were talking about this, and this was very interesting because the Detroit Lions were playing San Francisco. Y.A. Tittle was the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. But the Detroit Lions quarterback, Bobby Lane, who was a Hall of Fame quarterback, he broke his ankle second to the last regular season game. So he didn't play in the playoffs. He had actually missed a couple of games. He wasn't playing in this one. And a quarterback named Tobin Rote was the starting quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And so Detroit was down at halftime 24-7 and down 27-7 late or in the third quarter. Now, the problem was that the head coach of the Lions, and I can't think of his name. I had it down, but I forgot. I thought I had turned it down, I wrote it down, but didn't put it down. But at that time, those stadiums, you had the locker rooms, but you could hear each team. It's not like today where the Chiefs, all you hear is what the Chiefs say. You can't hear what the other team is saying or anything like that. There was like drywall separated between them. But San Francisco was celebrating like they had already won. And so the head coach said, I got nothing to say. They've said everything. It is totally up to you now. And turned around and outscored the San Francisco 49ers 24-0. And Y.A. Tittle threw 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter. At the time, the Lions in the first half had 4 turnovers. They had 0 in the second half, and they finally won the turnover battle 5-4 with three interceptions and a fumble, and with that, turned around and went from a 27-7 deficit to a 31-27 victory. And then they turned around the next week, defeated the Cleveland Browns for their last NFL title, 59-14. And then the other one was in 1983, where actually San Francisco or Detroit was one. It was one of their worst losses, playoff losses that they ever had. They were down 24-23 with, I believe, 11 seconds left, and I want to say Eddie Murray, but I think it was Eddie Murray, lined up for a field goal and missed it. And that would have given them the victory over the San Francisco 49ers. And that was in the division, or no, that was in the divisional game. And then they turned around. San Francisco played Washington the next week, lost to Washington, and then played the Los Angeles Raiders in the Super Bowl. So, and that was their heartbreaking loss. And so those were the only two games that Detroit and San Francisco have. Now, saying this, the offense in the playoffs, Detroit is averaging 362.5 yards per game, and in San Francisco, they had 356 yards. They threw for 245 yards and rushed for 111 yards. Detroit threw for 266 yards and rushed for 96.5 yards per game. That is the lowest out of the four teams in the playoffs. In fact, the two teams, San Francisco and Detroit, has rushed, or at least averaged rush, less than the Baltimore Ravens, who ran for 229 yards in their victory against the Houston Texans. And Kansas City, they were averaging 146 yards. In fact, I believe it was pretty even in both the games, the victory over Miami and the victory over Buffalo. So saying this, well, we're saying that for the offense. So the defense, San Francisco is averaged 330 yards, where they have given up 194 yards passing and 136 yards rushing. Detroit, on the other hand, they have only given up 78.5 yards rushing, but they have given up 338 yards passing. So for San Francisco to beat Detroit, they're going to have to run the ball and run it well against Detroit if they shut it down, because I feel that the rushing game is going to benefit them more than the passing game, because Deebo Samuel is out. Well, he is not out, but he is injured, and he practiced sparingly today, but we don't know his availability. Now, since this is a NFC Championship game, he's going to do everything possible to be there and play in the game, but how well does he perform is a different matter. So that Detroit's defense is really going to have to have the pass rush against Brock Purdy. But saying that, Brock Purdy does pretty good against the rush. In fact, I believe he was 7th in the NFL this year against pass defense or rushing defense, where they're coming in and rushing him and pressuring him, whereas Jared Goff is 27th. And San Francisco has a pretty good defensive line, and if they hassle Jared Goff all day long, it's going to be a rough day for Jared Goff, and San Francisco is going to be able to ease into the Super Bowl with that victory. Saying that, I am still going to hold my who I'm going to predict until Sunday. So you will have to watch that on Sunday to find out who I am picking. Now, saying this also, San Francisco during the year was plus 10 in the turnover department, which I believe was like tied for fifth. Baltimore had the best turnover ratio, and they were tied for first, and they had plus 12, whereas Detroit was equal. They were 0-0. They had 23 turnovers and 23 takeaways. Now, in the playoffs, San Francisco and Detroit were both plus 2 in the turnovers, and I believe Detroit was one fumble, one interception, whereas San Francisco had 2 interceptions. So this is going to be a great game. It's in San Francisco, and it is going to take a lot for Detroit to beat them. Saying that, I think Detroit still has an opportunity to win. Now, we're going to go to Kansas City and Baltimore, whereas Kansas City has the highest offensive total out of the 4 teams, averaging 385 yards per game, 238.5 yards passing, and 146.5 yards rushing. Now, saying that, that just shows the greatness of Patrick Mahomes, that he does not have to be Superman, or even you can even say he doesn't have to be Lamar Jackson, where he has to run the ball and throw the ball. He is managing the ball. The wide receivers are catching the ball finally. And I will say, actually, last week's MVP in that Buffalo-Kansas City game was MVS, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, with those 2 catches for 62 yards. You had not trusted him ever since he had dropped that ball in against Philadelphia, and he was still dropping passes. He was targeted 3 times, and he had the 2 catches. Those were huge, because what that did was it opened up the middle for Travis Kelce. It opened up Rashid Rice. They didn't have to just say, okay, all we have to do is shut Rice, shut Kelce, and we've got it made. It opened it up, and they were 2 long passes. The Chiefs had 8 plays over 20 yards in that game, where they really hadn't had a lot of plays over 20 yards. And Buffalo, when they went 6-0 to finish the season, to get in the playoffs, to win their division, they led in having 20-yard plays, had 0 in the game against Kansas City. And so for Kansas City and the defensive side, so Kansas City led with 285 yards. Baltimore was actually the last, but they had 352 yards. But they rushed for 229 yards and threw for 123 yards. Now, saying that, when Lamar Jackson throws 29 or less passes, he is 43-10. When he throws 30 passes or more, he is 17-12. So, for the Chiefs, that is the key. So, on the defensive side, Baltimore led all of them. They only had 213 yards. Now, they were the first team in the Super Bowl era to lead the defensive side in points score, most turnovers, and scoring points. They were number 1 in defense. They were number 1 in points scored defense, and number 1 in turnovers. That was the first time that has happened. Not the Chicago Bears of '85, not the Miami Dolphins of the '70s, not even the Baltimore Ravens of the 2000s. So they did very well. 175 yards passing, 38 yards rushing. So for the Chiefs, they're going to have to rush the ball. They're going to have to rely on Pacheco to get those yards. Now, Kansas City, they were second with 316. they had given up 187 yards passing and 129 yards rushing. And if you think about it, the Buffalo Bills rushed for 182 yards. I mean, they threw for 182 and they rushed for 182. So they shut down Miami. They shut down Buffalo's rush offense in the second half, only giving up 34 yards rushing. So this is going to be a battle. This is going to be a heavyweight battle. This is going to, to me, it's going to be kind of like Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. George Foreman is the Baltimore Ravens, and Muhammad Ali is the Kansas City Chiefs. They are seasoned. They are wily. They are not the strongest, fastest, whatever, but just like Muhammad Ali, he defeated George Foreman in the rope-a-dope contest, in the rope-a-dope match. Kansas City is, they are Muhammad Ali. They know what it takes to win, and they go in and they do it. They don't have to score 50 points anymore, which they didn't do this year at all. They went from the number 1 offense to the number 17th offense, and yet they are still getting ready to play for their 4th Super Bowl in 6 years. The only other team that has played in 4 Super Bowls in a 6-year period was the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills did it 4 years in a row, but Pittsburgh did it and won all 4 of those Super Bowls, whereas Buffalo didn't win any. So if Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, they have a shot at their 3rd Super Bowl title in 6 years, and that is just amazing in itself. So now, if Patrick Mahomes does make it to the Super Bowl, he will be the 8th quarterback in Super Bowl era to make it to 4 Super Bowls. There's only 2 quarterbacks that has been to more than 4 Super Bowls. So out of the 8, and there is a backup quarterback that is also in it with 4 Super Bowls too. But there are only 2 quarterbacks that has made it to 5 or more Super Bowls. Well, one is obviously Tom Brady. Do you know who the other one is? Yep. Well, say it on the...
Oh, I'm sorry about that. John Elway of the Denver Broncos.
That's right, John Elway. So, saying that, I believe Roger Staubach beat Terry Bradshaw to 4 Super Bowls first. Now, he didn't win all 4 Super Bowls, but Roger Staubach was the first one to make it to all 4 Super Bowls. Then it was Terry Bradshaw. Then you had Joe Montana. Then you had John Elway, Jim Kelly, Peyton Manning, and then Patrick Mahomes if he wins this game on Sunday. The other quarterback was Frank Reich, who was Jim Kelly's backup at Buffalo, who made it to the 4 Super Bowls. So there was 8 starting quarterbacks, but 9 total that had done that. So we are getting near the end of Any Given Sunday on KUAW, and normally we leave this time for the best segment of the day of our show, which is the best show around. Penny, for your thoughts. And since Darwin, Coach 24 Darwin Penny is not here, I want to do it, and it's more of a personal thing. And I want to thank everybody who messaged me and called me and asked me and texted me, asked me how I was doing, because they wasn't sure what it was, because I didn't specify what happened. I just asked for prayers. But I had 300 people responding. I had 300 comments, and I just want to thank every single person, and I can't thank everyone because it would take me another hour on the show to thank you. But I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, and my parents and my family, thank you too. That as I said in the message on Facebook, that I have the best family and I have the greatest friends around, and it's not even close. My friends are phenomenal, and I am so blessed to have people in my life, George Walker, Darwin Penny, and everybody on Facebook who sees me. And I know there are people that are not on Facebook that are amazing too. But I just wanted to thank everybody, and that was my penny for my thoughts. And with that, I am Brian Kress, the Awesome Voice. Be awesome, not angry, and you guys have yourself a great AFC NFC Championship phenomenal football weekend.